Okay, today I've got a 2001 F-150 XLT Lariat with a 5.4 liter motor. I've been smelling antifreeze inside and outside for a while, but couldn't find a leak, so I decided to look a little further. The other day I had a gusher and I knew it was time. The leak was showing up at the back of the motor underneath the truck. You can get under the truck, you can look from up here, you can look from any angle, you cannot see the back of that motor. So I figured there must be a crossover or something back there. What I found after much research, internet is great, the heater hoses are back there. There's one and there's two. I'll see if I can stick my hand in there. One comes right back to the front of the motor. This one here comes back to the front of the motor, goes into this crossover. If I can put a light on it, there's a crossover right here, and there's an aluminum crossover, goes right over to the thermostat housing. Right behind, goes behind the alternator. The other heater hose comes up, makes a whoop-de-doo back there, and goes back down behind the motor. It's very hard to see, but you can see a hose clamp way back in there if you look. And what I found is that connects to a steel tube that goes up underneath the intake manifold and into the back of the water pump. It's down underneath. It's really hard to see, but it's down underneath the alternator. I don't even know if you'll ever be able to see it from here without getting the alternator out of the way. But trust me, that's what it does. It comes out underneath. Let me see if I can get the camera over here. Underneath that. And that is what I figured had to be bad. That's a pretty common problem. You can replace it by pulling the intake manifold, replace the whole steel tube, or there's a couple of innovative guys on the internet who have pulled the alternator, sawed the tube off, connected a hose to it, and fished it back. Fished the hose out through here. There's plenty of room. And back over and tied it back onto that line, which eliminates that steel tubing. I thought that sounds like a viable option. But before I went and started doing the sawing and all that, I thought, well, maybe I need to pressurize this system to see if I can tell where the leak is. I didn't want to go and buy a $160 cooling system pressurization setup, so I did what I thought would work. I took this heater hose off right here. This was connected to this piece right here. There's a nipple that sticks out right here. So I pulled that off of there, rigged up a air hose back to my nifty little air gun, plugged this with a pipe plug and a short piece of hose, put just a little bit of pressure on the system. You certainly don't want to put 100 pounds of air to it. But when I did that, my leak showed up big time right there behind that housing. I mean, the gasket apparently blew out and it's spraying all over that first injector. So I thought, well, okay, I can replace this aluminum crossover. And no, Ford doesn't let you get away with it that easily. That aluminum crossover is actually part of the intake manifold. Believe it or not, it's a plastic intake manifold. The aluminum crossover, if you look right there, you can see the ends of two studs or bolts. It's bolted from underneath with a gasket to that intake manifold, so no matter how you look at it, you have to pull that intake manifold either to repair what you have, or what most people say to do, replace the original Ford intake manifold with an aftermarket Dorman part, which you can find all over the internet. It's supposed to be a better piece, not susceptible to the warping and gaskets spitting out like this one did. So I went on the internet. You can find them pretty reasonable all over the internet. Or eBay, you can get a pretty good deal, but I've learned my lesson. I went right to Amazon Prime. I know I'll have it in 2 days. It's been snowing out. I need my truck. So that's what I did. I paid a little bit more money, probably $20 more through Amazon Prime, but I know it'll be here in 2 days. So what I'm going to do is start taking things apart. Make sure you label everything. It shouldn't be too big a job. Most people on the internet say that anybody can do it if they're a little bit of mechanical ability. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull this all up, clean everything up, get ready for it. When it gets here, I will update, and we'll go from there. Thank you. Some of the things you'll run into, you got to take apart, label them as you go. I just put the screws back in, or the bolts where things came apart. The throttle cable assembly, to disengage it from the throttle body, you need to just push it back towards the firewall. It slides in with a little bit of a U-type thing. Just snaps on. The cable lifts up and over and slides out. Now let's see if I can get a better picture here. Kind of tough to hold the camera and do it all at once, but this comes up and over and slides in right there. Okay, then you'll be able to get that out of the way. Everything else, like I say, if you can put the bolts back in, tag things. I tagged the vacuum lines, tagged the PCV valve. There'll be a lot more of that as I go. That's it for now. Okay, a couple of tricky things here. That throttle body is kind of a pain in the neck to get off. And the last thing I found was that little bolt right there. I've got the bolt back in the boss, but the bracket is right there in front of it. And that is the vacuum tube that comes over to the brake booster. I just pulled it out of there thinking it would all come apart nice and easy, but you still have to get that bracket out eventually anyways, because it bolts to the manifold. And there's also a couple of, there's 4 bolts on that throttle body, 2 short ones, 2 long ones. One real long one on the left rear and one that's a real bear to get to in the back on the right hand side. I used a flexible knuckle to get it, 1/4 inch drive flexible knuckle. That's the only way I could break it free and then get it out of there. Everything comes out pretty good once you break them free. Now the only other thing I have to do now, I'm going to pull that all out of there and get it out of the way. Get this side of the fuel rail undone. I'm not quite sure how the injectors come out. I think they're just O-rings shoved down into there, but I'm going to be finding that out here pretty soon. So far I've been at it probably an hour, hour and a half, and once I get that throttle body out of the way, it will look a lot different. I'll take a picture of that here shortly. And that's it for right now. Okay, looking a little bit better. Got the throttle body off finally. I got these 2 vacuum lines that should come off, so I can get those out of the way. The one goes right there below that EGR valve. I just sprayed that nut real good and that came right out. And then one goes over to that module. I believe that's the 4-wheel drive module on the firewall. That goes to the bottom of that. I think that's what that is. I'll pop those out. That'll get this whole thing out of the way. Then I'll undo those 2 fuel rail bolts and start looking at the manifold bolts. Boy, what a kind of a time-consuming process, but not too bad, I guess. I've done worse. I mean, changing the coil packs on one of these is a real challenge too, with everything in there. So this is similar to that, kind of a pain, but we'll try and get it taken apart, and I'll take some more pictures along the way. Hopefully this will help somebody. Okay, see you for now. Okay, here we are. I had to quit yesterday, day 2. Probably had 2.5 hours in it yesterday. The very worst part about this whole job is leaning over the front of this damn truck to get the things. It's miserable. I've got everything broke loose. I did disconnect the fuel rail, and I disconnected the fuel lines. You got to have a fuel disconnect tool for that. 1/2 inch, 1/5/8. They were kind of a pain in the neck. You just had to push the tool in there and just yank on it. They finally came off. I got all the rest of the bolts out of the manifold. Let's see. You got to take this bracket off the back of the alternator. That's got to come out. Bolts right there. I don't know if you can see it or not. Right there. I got the manifold loose, but something's holding it up. Not quite sure what it is. I left the coil packs in there, just undid the bolts, spun them off to the side. On the passenger side, the driver's side looks pretty good. That side I think will come up. There's a little bit of something holding it up. I'm not quite sure what it is yet. But we're at the point now where we're very close to having it out of here. Not sure what, oh, that's what's holding it up right there. I got one bolt left in there. No kidding. So there's a total of, well, let's see, let me count that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 11 bolts that I've taken out. Actually, I've taken out 10. I got one more to go. I'll get that one out, see where I'm at. I think it'll lift up off of there and out of the way. I did find a vacuum line broken from the back of the manifold back there that swings around and comes over to the PCV valve. That hard line was broken inside the foam cover, but I don't know, I may have done that yesterday. I did hear something snap, and I'm guessing that might be what it was. So, because the truck ran fine, so I would think that would be a huge vacuum leak if it was that. Alright, I'm gonna get that last bolt out. I'll pull the manifold off and update at that point. See ya. Okay, well, another issue here. I thought that would just lift right up off of there, and it did for the most part, except there's this great big piece on the bottom of that manifold. I didn't even know it was there. See if I can wiggle it so you can see what I'm talking about. Whoops. That's all part of it, so I'm guessing that alternator has to come out. One more pain in the neck to deal with, but yeah, that's going to have to come out so I can get it up out of there. There's not enough room to lift it and get that whole thing out of there. Alright, let me go a little further and update again. Let's look over here and see how things are looking. Oh boy, I want to make sure I don't get a lot of antifreeze and stuff spilled down into the intake ports. That we really want to be careful of. I get this all cleaned up and get the darn thing out of there. Okay, see you for now. Okay, the alternator's out. Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn my music down, but okay, there's the steel tube I was talking about way back in the beginning. There's the steel tube that goes to the back of the water pump, goes all the way through the back of the block. There's a hole in the back of the block, I guess. We'll see that here in a few minutes, and ties on to that back to that water, or the heater core hose right there. You can see the clamp now. That's the other end of that tube. So that's what I was talking about earlier in this post yesterday. Alright, now I'm going to try and get this thing out of here once and for all, and I hope it goes back together easier than it came out, because it really was kind of a pain. Of course, I'm an old guy too, so alright, let me make sure it'll come out of there now. There's nothing to hold it back. Boy, that intake manifold's just huge. Just not used to dealing with anything like that, but that's what it is. I'll update in a few. See ya. Okay, one more surprise. A nice big old mouse nest in there, right in that valley. Believe that? Look at that sucker. And that steel tube doesn't go through a hole in the block. It just kind of follows back into that corner and up through that little area right there. So I'm going to take a look at that, because now would be the time to replace that. Although it looks pretty good, I don't see it being rusty or anything. I'm going to try and clean this whole mess up. There's a lot of antifreeze down in here in that valley, and get that rat's nest out of there. That amazes me, because I drive this truck on a regular basis, but a lot of carbon buildup in the ports. I don't know if I'll be able to do anything about that. Truck's got 140 some thousand miles on it, so I guess now it's time to start cleaning and get ready for the replacement. Get the rat's nest out of there, let them find another place to live. And I'm thinking that's about it for now. I'll take a picture of the, I'll walk you over here and take a picture of the intake manifold. There's my other project that I got to get back on, a 66 Nova that I'm working on, but this has priority because it's dead of winter and I need my truck. There's the complete intake. I'm going to flip it over and see what it... Wow, look at that thing. Jeez, it's just huge. I don't really know what all that is. I guess it's there for a reason. So, and my leak was, had to be right there, that gasket. And there's the aluminum crossover piece. You could repair that, but it would you got to go through all the same amount of work to get that off of there. There's 1, 2, 3 bolts, 4, 5 bolts. 6 that would come off. You could put new gaskets in there. My leak was between the aluminum and the plastic. Right there. That's where my leak was. Hopefully. That's where the pressure test revealed it. So that's it for now. Hopefully my new one will be here tomorrow. I'll update. That's that. See ya. Okay, a little bit more of an update. Oh my goodness, what a mess. That cavity in that valley is, oh gosh, 2.5 inches deep, and it's right full of, well, it was a big mouse nest. Up here is just full of anything you can imagine, oil, antifreeze, whatever. So I'm trying to soak up the liquid with towels so I can get to the point where I can vacuum what's left out of there. But what a real mess that was. I pulled all the coil packs. I tried to work around them, but that was just crazy. Pull the coil packs, you can clean that hole, take the gaskets off. The gaskets lay right here on the floor. They just pop right off of there. Take those off, clean make sure you look down in your ports. I had a lot of antifreeze down on this port from when I took it apart, and I would assume the rest of them are the same way. I've soaked out what I could with that. I'll shove another rag down in there with a screwdriver just to soak up what's in there, and I need to check the rest of these too. You don't want that antifreeze going in your motor. Luckily this valve was closed, so that's about it. I'm going to keep working at this mess. There is a sensor right there. I don't know what that is, but let's see if I can zoom in. But there's a sensor, there's a wire right here or whatever, maybe a vacuum, I don't know what it is. But there is a sensor down in there. I'll get to it and see if I can figure out what it is. I guess the steel tube looks to be in great shape. I'm not going to touch that. I'm going to keep cleaning, and I'll update later. Thank you. Okay, final recap till I get the new parts. I cleaned everything. Took forever. I mean, there was so much crud down in there. It was tough. I just soaked it all up with rags as best I could, scooped what I could out of there, and then vacuumed the rest out. Took a piece of heater hose, shoved it on my shop vac, and ran that down into each port to make sure there wasn't any stuff down in there. Cleaned up the coil packs, did the same thing with the coil pack tubes down in. I ran a piece of hose down in there and on my vacuum cleaner. I'm going to change my belt while I'm in here. It'd be crazy not to. It's quite a job. I mean, it's labor intensive, and it's a lot of leaning over the front of this stinking truck. It's a long ways in there, but so far so good. I hope my manifold will be here tomorrow. I'll update as I go. That's it for now. Thanks. Okay, here we are. There's the old manifold. And let me drag it out here a little bit. And I'm sure this could be repaired and reused. You just got to take this aluminum section off from underneath, replace the gaskets, and I think it'd be ready to go. Now I have to take the housing off of that because that has to go on the new one. Here's the new one, Dorman. Gotta love Amazon Prime. It was here, you know, less than 2 days. I ordered it, I can't remember, late in the day on Thursday, and here it is. It was here Saturday at 1 o'clock. It's a little bit different. I mean, it's got, you can see right straight through it, where the other one wasn't quite like that. But other than that, it comes with that, the manifold, the aluminum housing, which is identical by the looks of it, instruction sheet, and accessories. You got a new thermostat with an O-ring. You got a PCV valve thing that clips in the back and locks in place. Not all of the holes are tapped. They give you these self-tapping screws and self-tapping screws for the coil packs. There are for the throttle body, there are inserts, so you can't screw them up hopefully, but I think I will start all these and run them in out here before I get it in the truck, because it'll be a lot easier. I'll figure out which ones I'm going to need, draw them in, so it's easier to get them going. It comes with gaskets already installed on. They're an O-ring type gasket. I'm going to flip it over. You got all these gaskets are all in place, so make sure you clean your heads up real good in there. And I've done that all. I also went to the local pick-apart junkyard and got a couple of the fuel injector, actually no, coil pack clips, because I had a couple of these that were broken. Figured out how to take those off and put new ones on. So I cleaned up the faces really good. I'll make sure I wipe them down one more time. Clean up that center, and I think this one's about ready to go back on. I'm gonna do a little more checking and get it going back together. I will update. See you later. A little bit of an update. Got the intake on, got the injectors in, got the coil packs in and plugs all hooked up. I made the mistake of attaching the fuel rails to the intake, setting that on there, but don't do that because you got to take it apart. Got to take the bolts out anyways, so you can get your coil packs in. There's, you know, the one right there and the one back there. Those are all self tappers. I mean, they're real coarse thread screws that come with the kit. They work just fine, just don't over tighten them, and right there they are. I just put them all in ahead of time. I found out which ones I needed, screwed them all in with an impact just to get them cut, get the threads cut into the plastic, and then just when I put them on the truck I tighten them up with a 1/4-inch ratchet. Torquing the thing down was a pain in the neck. They want you to torque it at 2 foot-pounds or 18-inch pounds to begin with. I tried that. It's kind of tough to get. I don't have an inch-pound torque wrench, so I set it at 2 pounds and just did it in 3 steps very carefully. Don't go over 18 pounds. So far so good. I'm going to put the throttle body on now, try and get that stuff all hooked up. That's about it. Get the alternator back on, hook up whatever else I got to hook up, and I'll have to run and get some antifreeze tomorrow and fire it up, see what happens. I'll keep updating. Thank you. Okay, looks like it's all back together. I'll leave the cover off, start it, take it outside, make sure I have no leaks. I pray there's no leaks because I really don't want to go through this again. Check the oil, that seems to be okay. No, I'll let you know. See ya. Okay, got it running. Don't know. We'll let it warm up and see any leaks. What a bear getting back in there, man. It's a long reach for everything on these trucks. Put a new serpentine belt on while I was in there. Alright, we'll let it warm up and I'll update again. Okay, all went well. I'm going to consider this a successful endeavor, replacing that manifold. All in all, it was a pain in the butt, but it wasn't. Like I say, just reaching in there all the way back, you're almost laying on top of everything. That's the worst part of the whole job, really. That and cleaning up that valley in the intake there where I found that big old rat's nest. Got that all cleaned out and it was full of oil. Maybe it wasn't oil, probably antifreeze mixed with all the crap from whatever else they hauled in there. But it's a darn good truck. I'm hoping to keep it for a few more years. It's been a great one. That's it for me. Thanks for watching. One more thing, if any of you guys out there are interested in this old manifold, I'm sure it can be repaired. Just got to take that aluminum piece off, replace the gaskets where they made up to the bottom of the original intake, save yourself 150 bucks or so. But if anybody's interested, I'll post my email when I post this video. I'll ship it to you, just pay for the shipping costs and, you know, 10 bucks for the manifold, I guess. Okay, thank you. Bye.